Well, TMZ has claimed 2 decades after 9/11 that a fifth plane may have been involved in America's deadliest day. A new investigation by TMZ has uncovered the possibility that there was a fifth plane that the hijackers had intended to use during the September 11, 2001 terror attacks. This theory centers around United Flight 23, whose flight crew told TMZ that they believed their plane was supposed to have been part of the whole operation. Quote, "There's a good chance that somebody was plotting to try to use our airplane as a weapon of mass destruction," one of the pilots told TMZ. As evidence, he pointed to box cutters that were found under his seat that he believes had been meant to slit his throat. Quote, "I believe that it's a reasonable assumption to think that those box cutters were meant for my airplane, not the one next to me," he said. You have people that clean the airplane, people that load food on the airplane, that have access to the airplane. If somebody was in cooperation with the group, they could have been put there. There are a host of people that have access to the airline. It wouldn't be the hardest thing in the world to get on an airplane like that. Something was going on there that should not have been going on, he added. Furthermore, there was a lot more evidence where this came from, including the hatches on the bottom of the plane that had been left opened. Quote, "The first thing," meaning federal investigators, "asked me after the flight was why the floor hatches were open on the airplane," one of the flight attendants said. "The airplane was locked and sealed when I left the airplane, so something else was going on that I cannot explain," the previously mentioned pilot added. The crew members who spoke with TMZ also mentioned 4, quote, "Arabs in the first class who kept badgering the flight attendants while they were handing out food about how soon the flight would take off." Now, they also claim that these, quote, "Arabs were not interested in eating, but kept pressing to know when the flight was going to take off. One of them reportedly was wearing a burqa, but they believed it to be a man underneath. And the crew also reported that people on the ground, baggage handlers, for example, saw 2 people running inside the plane after it had been successfully evacuated. So, more than 20 years on, we have TMZ telling us there may have been a fifth plane involved in 9/11, but we don't even know that there was a third or fourth plane. Now, don't even get us started on Building 7, which was not hit by any planes, yet seemingly collapsed into its own footprint by that same afternoon. And of course, we have footage of Larry Silverstein, the leaseholder of the World Trade Center complex at the time, being interviewed saying that the decision was made to pull it, a known term in the controlled demolition world. But anyway, that's a story for another day. The official narrative that we were told at the time was that there were 2 planes, each of them at the Twin Towers, one that crashed into the Pentagon and another that crashed in a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, about 80 miles east of Pittsburgh. That was Flight 93. If that was all indeed the case, then yes, TMZ could be talking about a fifth plane. But when you look at the footage, what little has been released of the Pentagon, many over the years have claimed that it wasn't a plane at all. There was very little scattered debris from the plane hitting some light posts on its way to the plane hitting the Pentagon itself. Then we saw what appears to be a single puncture hole to the side of the Pentagon building, barely the size of the fuselage. Many have raised questions as to where the impact side of each of the 6-ton turbines next to the wings ever was, and whether it ever hit the structure at all. In fact, CNN at the time even questioned this, claiming there was no evidence a plane hit the Pentagon at all. This is an excerpt from the documentary Loose Change. Take a listen.
Why is there no discernible trace of Flight 77?
You know, it might have appeared that way, but from my close-up inspection, there's no evidence of a plane having crashed anywhere near the Pentagon. The only site is the actual side of the building that's crashed in, and as I said, the only pieces left that you can see are small enough that you could pick up in your hand. There are no large tail sections, wing sections, a fuselage, nothing like that anywhere around, which would indicate that the entire plane crashed into the side of the Pentagon.
The official explanation was that the intense heat from the jet fuel managed to vaporize the entire plane, basically, but not the computers and other items, still perfectly intact in the immediate vicinity of the crash site, you see. Then looking at Shanksville, we just have to look at MSM footage released on the day. This is another excerpt from Loose Change. Take a listen.
Did they find a plane in Shanksville?
Within the last hour. I want to get quickly to Chris Kanicki. He was back there just a couple of minutes ago, and Chris, I've seen the pictures. It looks like there's nothing there except for a hole in the ground.
Basically, that's right. The only thing you could see from where we were was a big gouge in the earth and some broken trees. from where we could see, there wasn't much left.
Any large pieces of debris at all?
No, there was nothing that you could distinguish that a plane had crashed there.
Smoke, fire?
Nothing. It was absolutely quiet. It was actually very quiet. Nothing going on down there, no smoke, no fire. Just a couple of people walking around. They look like part of the NTSB crew walking around looking at the pieces.
How big would you say that hole was?
From my estimates, I would guess it was probably about 20 to 15 feet long and probably about 10 feet long or 10 feet wide.
What could you see on the ground, if anything, other than dirt and ash? And
you couldn't see anything. You could just see dirt, ash, and people walking around, broken trees.
From the Somerset County coroner to the mayor of Shanksville, almost every eyewitness would remark how little of the plane and its passengers remained.
So we could spend an entire week explaining why the official narrative about September 11 makes zero sense at all. What we do know is that it set the precedent for the Patriot Act and mass surveillance on not only the entire population of the United States, but the entire world. There are similarities to the solutions being suggested with what we've seen going on with the current LA riots, more questions than answers, as we presented in our previous report. But when it comes to 9/11, it would be fairly easy to answer these questions, actually. President Trump has stated he would release all the files relating to 9/11. If he did so, then once again, we could compare these files with what our eyes and ears saw and heard at the time and since. Nothing on those files yet, though. Until then, we're not quite ready to talk about a fifth plane when we don't know that there was even a third or a fourth.